Welcome back to Learning Fusion360 with me, Win. We're going to make a box today, I think. Hopefully learn some of the techniques and fusion tools and things as we're going along. So I'm going to draw a sketch, a horizontal plane. I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to give it some dimensions. Let's make it 100 mil tall, maybe 200 long. Okay, and we're going to extrude the sketch to create our box. Let's do it 50. Okay. And so the next thing we're going to do is shell it, and maybe we'll have a 6 mil wall to our box. Right, round over the corners. 6 mil, maybe a bit bigger, 8 mil radius. Okay, so this is one of the things I want to show you really is obviously we don't have a uniform wall thickness here, basically because I've shelled it first and filleted it afterwards. It gives us an opportunity really to talk about the relationship between these things in our timeline. So we've got a timeline that we're building up: the sketch, extrusion, shelling, and the fillet. Okay, basically, as I said in the last video, a set of instructions really for making this model. We can go back to any of these and edit these, so I can change the height if I wanted to. Change the size of the sketch, or even the thickness of the wall. So all these are editable. But there's a relationship between them. So I wouldn't be able to shell the box before the box existed. Okay, but I'd be able to fill it. So there's a relationship between the sketch. Obviously, you can't extrude the sketch before the sketch exists. You can't shell the box before the extrusion, but I would, in theory, be able to fillet this before the shell. So there's no relationship between these two, and just simply dragging this in the timeline to exist before the shell. So now we have a uniform wall thickness there. So that's an important principle. There's relationships between these things. And sometimes you can, as a sort of general rule of thumb, when you create things, you go for the top level relationship. So if I was going to sketch on this plane here, if I chose the side wall of the box I'm creating, there's going to be a relationship there between that sketch and the side wall of the box. Okay, whereas I have an alternative higher level option here, which is that work plane. Okay, so this is now not tied my sketch to the side wall of the box. In that case, it probably wouldn't matter, but as a general principle, you would try and do that. There's no real right or wrong way of creating models. What it really comes down to is, does it behave in the way you intended it to behave, and how easy or hard is it to edit it in the way that you might need to in future. Other than that, there are multiple ways you could create a box like this. So we need to create a lid for this box as well. One way of doing that then would be to sort of draw on the top of the box here and actually extrude a lid upwards. We do want it to sit inside here as well. So one way I could do it is to sort of put a sketch on that top surface. I could project that top surface onto my sketch. So we would project that surface onto our sketch. If I switch the bodies off, then we can see we've got two sketches. The initial one at the bottom to create the profile, and now this new one at the top of the box. The purple lines are telling me that that's a projection of the edges of that that top surface. Yeah. So we could, well, firstly, I might extrude that section downwards into the box. Let's go -3. Now, if I leave this way, that will join that back onto, basically sealing the top of that box, okay, as a single body. And that's not really what I wanted to do. So I'm going to right click on there, edit this feature. And what I should have done is made sure that this is set to be a new body. So now we've got two bodies in our body folder. So the bottom and this internal part of the lid. Okay. I'm going to switch the visibility of that sketch back on. This time I'm going to extrude that section and that section. I don't want it to be a new body this time. I do want it to join. But it's going to join everything that's touching it. And I don't want that to happen. Okay, so what I need to do is switch off the visibility of the box. And when I click OK, it's only joining it onto what was visible. Let's have another look at that. Yeah. Okay, let's switch the visibility of that sketch off. So we've got our lid, we've got our body. So great, that's the box finished. So a couple of other things then. We could drive this box. You know, so how might we want to edit this box in future? Let's take a look, see what happens if we go to, if I change this to be 200 square, and let's switch the lid off. So you can see, you know, it's behaving how I'd want it to behave really. If I simply wanted to change the overall size of the box, you know, the wall thickness stays the same, the projection from the lid, you know, the lid matches the box always, so the whole thing would fit together. So that's really good design intent. Okay, so the model has been built to behave in the way that we'd want it to behave. Other ways I could have done that, maybe, you know, so a way that it might not behave the way you wanted it to behave would be if we sort of drew the box, and then if we drew maybe a new outline to cut into the box. Okay, so we might want this to be our cutting into there. It looks uniform. Okay, but you know, the difference here being that if I now edit the outside of my box, the inside doesn't follow. Okay, so that's sort of poor design intent, really. It would give me a bit of a, if this was a complex model, I would have a bit of a nightmare on my hands trying to edit this to behave the way I wanted it to behave. Okay, so where we were back there, I think. So I'm going to delete everything after that history marker. We can actually drive the size of the box from a parameters sheet. Okay, so if I click on the drop-down menu, click on change parameters, we can see all the parameters in the sketch. Okay, so sketch 1 has D1 and D2. The extrude has a distance. The shell has the wall thickness, etc., etc. Okay, so all these are parameters in, and I should be able to change these here. Click OK, so we've got a new size for our box. I can also create some user parameters. So I might want to call this width. I'm going to create another one. Let's call it height. And another one, let's call this length. So if I went back to my sketch, so instead of having inputting numbers directly into the sketch itself. I'm going to call this width. Okay, so just start typing width in there. You'll see now it's a function of something. The length, just type L, length. Okay. The extrusion, then we right click on extrusion, edit that feature. Instead of 60, we're going to go for the height. So all these parameters then are driven by the parameter sheet. Might add a couple more in there actually. So let's go for wall. I'll just call it wall for now. So this is going to be the wall thickness. Yes, so let's 5 mil, and let's do one more, which is the corners, and let's call that 10 mil. So if I edit the shell, this needs to be the wall thickness, and the fillets on the corners, this needs to be corner dimension. Yeah. So now we can, from our parameter sheet, we can drive all these things. So the corners, if I wanted that to be a 20 mil radius on the corner, if I wanted the wall thickness to be 10, so we're actually modifying the thickness of the wall, and our model is behaving exactly how we would want it to behave. So that's the parameter sheet in Fusion360. Parent and child relationships between the things that you create in the timeline. So have a go making the box. Good luck. See you in the next video.